Hi everyone, my name is Peter Westman, and today we will cover NodeGraph's Data Quality Manager, or the DQM as we like to call it, and also how to create a project around the product. I would also like to share our vision and our thoughts going forward developing the product. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This is a one-way communication platform, so I won't hear you. Hopefully you will hear me. We encourage you to ask questions, so please post any questions in the question tab on the side of your window, and I'll try to answer as many of the questions as possible at the end of this webinar. If we run out of time, I'll make sure to answer the questions afterwards via email. This webinar will be approximately 30 minutes today. And last but not least, before we kick this off, if you think your sound is a little bit weird, it's probably just I'm a little bit sick today, so I apologize in advance if I sound a little bit off. It's not COVID, so no need to worry. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and stop sharing my camera and start sharing my screen. Let's see here. Share my screen. Hopefully you see my screen now. So the agenda for the day. First, a little short introduction of myself. We're going to do a little demo of the DQM, and then we're going to talk a lot about the implementation projects. Shortly on land and expand, the roadmap going forward, pricing, and at the end, some questions and answers. So again, very warm welcome to all of you. It's very nice to see that many could make it here today. This session is being recorded, I need to say as well, and it will be sent to you directly afterwards. So for those who just joined us, my name is Peter Westman, and I am the product owner of the DQM here at NodeGraph. I've been with the company for about 6 months now, and before working at NodeGraph, I was head of consulting at one of the biggest BI partners in the Nordics for a little bit over a decade. And we had our biggest focus was on Click, even if we worked with some other BI tools as well. And one thing that I know from working for a BI partner for so long is that a lot, and when I say a lot, I really mean a lot of applications we built throughout the years are not being used because the customer simply does not trust the reports or the data. And I do not know how many times I've been sitting in meetings discussing data quality issues with customers. And so many times we as partners were just asked to fix it by changing the configuration, adding things, fixing the scripts, and so forth, instead of just dealing with the actual problem. And it is a bit fascinating how basically all software applications are tested, but data presented in BI tools isn't. But I hope this will change because I'm certain that testing will also provide BI tools with the credibility that they have lost over the years of presenting inaccurate figures. So I'm quickly going to show you the DQM. Hopefully you have all seen it before and are somewhat familiar with what it can be done, but do not worry if this is your first time seeing it. So I'll change into NodeGraph. When we come into the Data Quality Manager for the first time, this is what you will see, basically nothing. So the first thing we have to do is to create a project. I create a project, and a project is like a collection of tests. In this case, you can have, I'm going to choose the sales department, but you can also select an application or any kind of vertical, or basically whatever you want to do. It depends on how you would like to set up your testing environment. This means that you will be more than likely having multiple projects to cover your total BI landscape. But I will choose sales department here today. And here you can also select on how you want to be notified, depending on if the tests are, depending if the tests are failing or not. So notification here, you can have none, success, failure, or both. In this case, I will choose failure. You can choose to be notified via Slack or via email. I'll choose email, and I just add my email here quickly. Peter Westman at NodeGraph. Save. Now it's time to set up a test. I click test on the left here, and then I add test case in the middle. I choose a name and description. In this case, I'll just do sales test, and then I click save. I've created my first test, but this does not say anything. I need to add a test item, and we will get back to test items later when we talk about the pricing. And these are the different test items that you can choose from today. Assert database connection, file, QVD, QVW, sense application, assess, sense baseline test. And we will get back to these whenever we talk about the roadmap going forward as well. In this case, I would choose QVD, and then I also directly need to choose the QVD I would like to test. Sales QVD, and then I click save. And I will see we have the project. Under the project, we have the sales test, and then this is the item we would like to test today. The first task, to actually do the test, you need to set up tasks under each item. The first task I would like to run is a field exist. So add test task. I would like to do a field exist. What this task means is that it checks whether or not a field exists in the selected QVD. We can run this task to ensure that our data set are complete. In this case, I'll choose sales order detail ID, sales order detail ID exists, question mark. I click save and evaluate, and I get the result, all fields found. So I can see that this field is found in this QVD. Now I would like to run another task. I do this again, and this time I do record count. How many records is it in this QVD? So I do save and evaluate, and I can see it's 121,317. And finally, I'm going to add a last task. And this time I'm going to do aggregated field. I'm going to do a count. I'm going to do how many sales order IDs. This is basically the same as I did before. This time I'm going to do only distinct numbers to see how many actual sales IDs is it in this QVD in total. Sales ID, like this. Let me scroll down a bit, save and evaluate. And I can see it was 31,465. So as you can see, this is not very hard to set up. And the complexity with the DQM does not lay in the actual setting up the tests. It's rather to know what kind of tests you want to set up. In this case, I just pulled a lot of different data from this QVD. What you can do later is that you can extract the same data directly from your data source from an SQL database, for example, and compare them to this. So this was just to very, very briefly give you a little look into the DQM if you hadn't seen it before. We will be happy to give a lot more extensive demonstrations on the product later on, but this was just basically to give you a short idea of what it looks like. So But I'm very pleased to tell you that we have put in a lot of hours in getting the test tasks for ClickView up on the same testing standard as we have had for ClickSense. And we're now just days away from having our new version in place. That means that you can, for example, also do expression testing in ClickView. And this is really great news because I know a lot of your customers out there are still using ClickView, and often a mix of ClickView and ClickSense, and this will give them the possibility to have a full-scale testing throughout their entire Click landscape. Another feature that has been frequently requested is the possibility to schedule test tasks from the QMC. The development team is currently implementing this, and this will be available very shortly. However, it's important to say that we have a temporary solution in place, which gives the customer the same experience. And to me, this is really important since I see the DQM as a gatekeeper to avoid sending out reports with faulty data. You could, for example, run your extract scripts and then test the QVDs. At this point, you can make sure that the data is correct, and if it's not, you can stop the process so the end user does not end up with a report with bad data, meaning that you can test through the ETL process and not just at the end to verify, allowing you to catch errors in place. So I'm going to go back to here. So the implementation projects, and this is the part where it becomes interesting for you as partners. I know how it is to sit on your position, deciding what products to add to your portfolio. And there's a thin line between choosing what the customer need and what your bottom line needs. And I truly believe that the DQM could be a little bit of both, and that we together can do something really amazing here. So let us talk about the DQM products and what you can expect if you start selling them. So we're dividing the project from start to finish into 8 blocks. And there are a lot of similarities to a traditional Click project when it comes to our vision for the DQM projects. We start with the white piece of paper, and this is very different from the Data Atlas that has always been more of a plug-and-play product. And this is changing a little bit with NodeGraph 4.5 for you who has seen that, where you can actually do a little bit more of individual configuration with KPIs and so forth. But in general, much more of a product that is ready after installation. And this is also why I think that DQM is a much more attractive product from a consulting perspective. And let's see. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So, and this is how the project would look. So let's quickly go through the different phases. So pre-sale is where we introduce the customer to the DQM test journey. Because it's all about a journey that we will do together. And the journey could look very different depending on the customer, of course, but the elements should always be the same. We also go through the functionality of the DQM and run a quick demo. And the product itself is not very demo-friendly, as you saw before, but it becomes very clear what it can do and what it can't later when you do the POC, a little bit like Click. We'll also try to be clear on the requirements for doing a successful POC. And we need 3 use cases, and we love to have remote access. This should hopefully not be a problem for you since you already have a long relationship with your customers, but it might be a little bit more problematic when you are pitching the DQM to a new customer, but it would make running the POC a bit easier. And by having knowledge of your customer's BI landscape, you probably already know where they have problems with data quality. And so you should really be proactive here and give advice on where they should start. After identifying 3 problem areas or use cases, it is time to plan the POC. And we normally schedule a workday for this, and that is including installing the DQM, setting up connection to BI tools, databases, and so forth. And the important thing here is to set the right expectation for the customer. We have 3 use cases that we must solve, and at the same time win over the customer's trust so we can build a larger project and set up more tests, and thus ensuring that the customer gets better control of their total landscape. During the POC, we define by listening to the customer the scope for the continuous journey. As with any Qlik project, it is important to plan big, even if you start small. It is important to have a plan from the beginning, even if it might change a few times, so you don't just start setting up tests left and right. I guess we've all been there in that situation when it comes to Qlik. It is great at first, but when you just build and build applications, KPI dashboards, and so forth, but after a while, it starts being messy and unorganized. So it's a lot better to have a plan from the beginning. When the POC is done, we give the customer a 14-day trial license when they can see the outcome of the POC work in action. When those 14 days are over, we present the scope together with an estimate in terms of both calendar time and cost to the customer. And I would say a normal start project is somewhere between 30 and 60 hours. It depends very much on the complexity of the environment, of course, and what kind of tests that are being set up. But even if this is just a ballpark number, it gives you a good indication on what you could expect in terms of revenue on this type of starting projects going forward. And it goes without saying that this is just a start of something that will live and grow over time, exactly like you're used to with the Qlik project. New Qlik applications are going to be developed, meaning that new tests needs to be set up, but also new data quality issues will be reported in the existing BI landscape, and new tests needs to be set up to make sure that these issues are not coming back. The project will start and follow some sort of product plan like any other project. And when the project is delivered, a training session will follow. This will be very different between different customers, just like with the Qlik implementation. And you probably have customers that call you, to change a color in a bar chart, but also customers that only call when they run into some real complex problem. And the same thing will go for the DQM. Depending on the size of the customer and the size of their DQM testing landscape, they will do different amount of work themselves. And regardless of the approach, we will be there helping you with the training material and training sessions when necessary. And this is another good revenue stream for you, though. So I really encourage you to take this opportunity to take a lead on this kind of training yourself. And finally, you sum up the project and hand over all documentation to the customer. But again, this is not an end of something, but the beginning. So like a Qlik project, you will run into new areas, new departments, new people, a new problem while running the project, and that will become a new project and so on. And you yourself as partners will be in control of how much you can push the project or the product out in the organization. And that is why I like this product so much. So land and expand. This is something that we have all heard working with Qlik. We have touched on the subject, but I think it's really worth mentioning again. The DQM is a product that really benefits from the land and expand approach. You come in, you start small, and you make sure it works as expected. Wait for the tests to run a few times and see how it picks up on problems and notifying the customer about it. And as soon as everything has settled, you start expanding. More tests on existing areas and start testing new areas, new applications, new departments, and so on. And with the new pricing model, you are not only increasing revenue by consulting when expanding, but you're also making profit or revenue on the license itself. But I'll get back to the actual license part a little bit later. So the roadmap going forward. As mentioned before, we have a lot of good stuff coming when it comes to QlikView testing in the near future. But there is a lot more than just that in our pipeline for 2021. And we already started the journey of making DQM compatible with both Power BI and Tableau as well. This will take a little bit more time, but we expect it to be ready early fall of this year. And there is also a lot coming on integration with Data Atlas. We would like to give the user the best of two worlds. So let's say you start in Data Atlas, and regardless of whether you're looking for a specific KPI or looking at lineage all the way from an SQL database to an end application in ClickSense, you can get instant feedback if there are any quality issues that have been identified by the DQM. And the other way around, if you start in the DQM and get notified that there's a quality issue with, let's say, a QVD, you can then, with a simple click, get transferred to the Data Atlas to see what end applications that are using this QVD. This way, you can get a better picture of potential problems for end users. We're also talking more about roles in the DQM and who should have access and what level of access that should be. We believe that the consumer of the test results should never set foot in the actual DQM product. All the test information will instead be presented in either the Data Atlas, if you have that, or in a ClickSense extension or similar for other tools. Instead, you will have test owners who are responsible for a group of tests, and they are the ones either setting up the tests themselves or via you as their BI partners. This, together with UX improvements, will come throughout the whole year of 2021. And we also hope to see a lot of feedback from both you as our partners, but also from your customers when we start implementing more DQM projects going forward. So, pricing. We have chosen to call the different pricing levels the same names as we do with the Data Atlas. And this is not to confuse the customers. And it's important, though, to point out that the customer may have different levels for the two products. So this could be a little bit more confusing, actually. But this is the approach we have. And a customer who currently has a commercial on Data Atlas can then go into a light for the DQM. And since we're talking about land and expand, starting small and growing, I believe that a lot of customers can start with the light. This is also priced at the level that even smaller companies can justify. And since we have added an allowance limit on number of test items, the customer will eventually upgrade when the limit is reached. So the limit is on test items and does not limit you at all on test tasks, the actual task the actual test, so to say. It's only on test items. So for the light, you can, for example, test 10 different QVDs with 100 tasks each. And our guess is that a lot of mid-sized and also a little bit bigger companies will be totally okay with a commercial license in the long run. You can add a few extra tools and databases, and we'll have a limit of 100 test items, which is quite a bit. So back to the test items, as we saw before, you were creating the project to collect tests. The project could be an application, as we said. Within the project, you have the actual test, and then under the test, you have the test items. And that was this assert, database connection, file, QVDs, and so forth. And with that said, those are the ones. And then now with the roadmap going forward, this list will obviously increase. There will be more test items connected to ClickView, and then eventually also more test items connected to Power BI and Tableau. So with that said, I am pretty much done with my presentation, and I will answer a few questions that have come in here during the presentation. Time is running a little bit low here, so I will only have time for a few, but I promise to put together an email with all the questions and my answer to send it to you after. So let's see here. First question, what is the next step to get this started in reality? So after this webinar, my plan is to contact each and one of you for a one-on-one meeting. We will then talk about potential customers and who they are, and we will talk about the onboarding process and how we can do this together. And what happened? Let's see if we have any other So what happens to customers who already have DQM in their license but do not use it? That's a great question. They will be transferred directly to the light version with the applied restrictions. And for customers that are already using it, we will make sure to find a solution or a model that fits. No one should walk away with a worse deal than they have from before, of course. I think we have time for one or two more. Is the idea that we as partners should run this completely ourselves from the beginning? No, it is not something you should do by yourself. That this is rather something we should do together from the beginning. And my plan is that we will run 2-3 projects together from the beginning, and the idea is that this will also become a natural onboarding for you to the product and the project process. So this is something we will talk about more when we have our one-on-one meetings, but we will definitely do this together. And I think we have one more question that we can answer before we end this. And can we sell just the DQM, or does it have to be sold with the data atlas? This is a great question, and the answer is yes. You can sell just the DQM. And this is, we see a lot of customers that would benefit from just the DQM. However, it's important to say that they would probably get much more out of it if they also had the data atlas and the data catalog. In many cases, the DQM could be the way to land the project. And once the testing shows the weak spots in their data, the other modules will be more attractive for them to be able to get the full picture. So again, you can come in, instead of coming in with the data atlas, you come in via the DQM, and then from there you can expand into have the full portfolio of the NodeGraph products. So it is time to wrap this up. I really hope you see this as a good opportunity going forward, and I really hope to talk to you soon. There are still a few unanswered questions, but I will make sure to send out the answers later. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.